Hi, this is Kevin with KKOA, back to you again with another one of our how-to money saving ideas or videos that we do. Today we're going to address a problem that we had, and we're going to install solar, kind of a do-it-yourself solar install. So come along with us as we continue and we begin this adventure together. We by no means are any expert or any professional at doing this, so nor can we really give any kind of recommendations of saying this is the best, this is it. We can kind of just share with you what we have and what we've learned and kind of what the system that we're looking at. It may work for your needs and it may not. So each individual solar system that you install will vary between your needs, depending on how much power consumption that you think you're going to use or have, or what you're actually going to use it for. The big key thing is you need to remember about what kind of wattage that you're going to draw, what kind of amps you're going to pull, to determine your battery size, to determine the inverter size, and how long that you can go, and also depend on how many panels that you need. So everybody has their own individual needs. For us, I just wanted something that we can, keep our, CPAPs going at night, that we can run our coffee pot, charge our laptops, and do some minor consumption, but also have enough to where the solar panels will recharge the batteries during the daytime that we're able to use them at night. You may have on your travel trailer RV, it may be set up either for solar prep or solar ready. There is a difference between the two. Your solar ready, generally there's a port that'll be on the outside of your travel trailer that you can kind of plug into. It has a connector that goes to your battery, so if you want to charge in like a portable panel that you lay out in front, then you can use that to charge your battery. That would be solar ready. If it's solar prep, that means they actually have the wires that run up through the walls or up through the ceiling, and you'll have connectors that you will have that'll be in a box or something of some sort on top of your roof. So all you have to do is connect up some solar panels, connect it into the charge controller, and then you're able to charge your batteries. So that's the difference between solar ready and solar prep. So you may hear those terms, or you may see those terms that you have, depending on what it is. If you go to your dealer or if you go to purchase one, it may say solar ready or solar prep. Please keep in mind the difference between solar ready and solar prep. Our bullet is solar ready. However, the 2020, I think newer they did, 22 and up on the bullets, or 21 and up, they started making them solar prep, to where they actually have solar where they started putting on the roof, and you can have packages and everything when you get yours from the factory. But if yours is not solar prep, like ours is not solar prep, you're going to have to make a penetration on the roof going down, or an access going down for the wires to go down to the charge controller from your solar panels. Please excuse the mess, because we actually emptied all our food out of the pantry. But what we decided to do, we have our pantry that comes in the door. I am going to make a penetration that's going to be going up through the roof here. This seems to be the best ideal thing. I'm going to run some conduit that's going to go down, and it'll go down back behind the panel. We have our main panel distribution that goes in right here, so it's our main panel distribution. We're not going to do anything, just be cautious when you do it. But the biggest key thing that we're going to do is we're going to run that conduit all the way down the access panel under here. Now, I've done lots of research on the internet, watched many YouTube channels and many people doing. I was also a little bit nervous about dealing with solar, but after I'd researched, it actually is a pretty simple concept. I had to get through a little bit. Some of you may not feel comfortable doing it yourself, but please make sure that you either consult a professional, or that you get enough knowledge to either watch YouTube videos or get enough knowledge to understand. There's a lot of big important key things that you got to factor in when considering or doing solar. So you need to consider how much output that you're going to be needing or requiring will depend on your wire size, depend on your inverter size, and so all these things you got to take in consideration into play. If you don't wire it up correctly, or you don't do things correctly, it can burn up the wires, can burn up, cause a fire and whatnot. So just give a little sense of caution. If you decide to go ahead and do this yourself, please understand that there are some things that you need to do to ensure, including fuses, circuit breakers, the right size wire, and everything in line. At first, we were just going to go with two 100 amp panels, or let me rephrase that. We were going to go with two 100 watt panels of solar and come down to a 10, 30 amp charge controller, which would have been enough to keep our batteries charged. However, if we only had one battery, 200 amp panels would probably be enough for our needs to charge one battery. But since we got two batteries, we would not fully be able to charge our batteries through the course of the day. So we decided to go with an additional 200 watts. So we're going to have a total of 400 watt solar. I have two 100 amp panels that we're going to install. And then I have a 200 watt panel that we're also going to do, giving us a total of 400 watts. In the kit that I had all the wiring that I needed to hook up the panels. So you may need some Y splitters. Need some Y splitters that you're going to need to do, especially if you're going to run your system going to be parallel. You're going to need to, depending on if you're going to do parallel series. I decided to keep it. Go ahead and run and connect everything in parallel. So I got some Y splitters. You are going to need a charge controller. This right here is a 60 amp charge controller. Even though I'm only running 200 watts or 400 watts of solar panel, I really only need no more than a 40 amp charge controller, but I decided to go ahead and jump it up to a 60 to allow for future expansion. If for somewhere later on down the road, I need to add an additional 200 watts of solar, like it's not meeting our needs or we want to increase our capability, then it gives me a little bit of flexibility on the 60 watt. What I did get is I got an MPPT charge controller. MPPT charge controller. This does multiple different things. It can charge lithium, charge your regular lead acid batteries or AGM batteries. So the controller is really the key, the brains. You'll come in from your solar panels into the controller, out from the controller into your batteries, output to charge your batteries. This is the key component, is a charge controller. There's many. I'm not recommending or saying this one's the one to get. I will put the link down below of what I got, but we'll see how it does. To me, it seemed like it had a bunch of features, and it was a kind of a cost or inexpensive solution. So I do have a couple. What you do need is you need to make sure you have circuit breaker protection or switch, so that way you could shut the panels off coming into the charge controller. You don't want to have live wires or hot wires or anything coming in. So this gives you the ability, once you connect it up, come in with your wiring, to shut that off. I've got a couple of those. Also have in line, I've got a shunt. We'll talk more about that. I may or may not install this, but I did have a shunt that goes on your battery connection to connect that up as well. Additional ignition or additional another circuit breaker protection fuse in line. I've got the wiring. Got some number 8 wire that's going to come off on the panels. Based on my amperage that I'm pulling, the total panels I'm only pulling about 33 amps. So number 8 wire is all I needed, which is more than enough. It also that's more than enough that I need. I really could only got away with number 10. But like I said, I want to be able to have it for future growth. I'm going to install kind of a weatherproof box that I'm going to put on top. So this will be where I'm going to have those connections. The connections will come in, make all the connections up, and then I'm going to run a conduit that's going to go down to the ceiling. So I did a weatherproof box that I'm going to mount on top to make all my connections and everything up inside. I did start to go with something like this. This was a connection that'll throw an access. This will cover up. If I wanted just to set that right up on top, I could have set that right up on top of the roof and gone there for the connections. But I decided to have a little bit bigger box to allow a little bit more expansion. I have some additional some connectors that go for the wire to connect that up. Now, looking over on the battery side, I did go with the 1500 watt pure sine inverter. If you just want to charge your batteries and keep your batteries charged and everything, maybe you have a 12 volt refrigerator or something and whatnot, this is all you need. But if you want to use it to be able to run some outlets or run some 120 volt, this is where you will need to have an inverter. I did go ahead. Now, this is a little overkill. You always want to upsize your wire. You never want to have just enough, because the wire with time, as more draws, more amps and everything else, it will heat up the wire. It could cause fire. So you don't want to do that. So I decided to go ahead and upsize my wire. Now this is a little overkill. This is one aught wire. I could have got away with number 4 wire. This is 1/0, which is really thick and really expensive. However, if later on down the line, I feel 1500 watts is enough, I want to put a 3000 watt inverter in, this will give me the capability to expand all the way up to 3500 watts. So if I want to go up to a 3500 watt inverter, I'm already pre-wired or wired up for it. I will have, because of 1500 watts, I did have a breaker. You want to make sure I did have a little bit. That's still a little bit overkill, but I don't want to exceed. This also has a breaker that'll shut off, but I want to make sure that it doesn't, if for something happens, it burns up the wire. We got that protection. Now, like I said, there's many different makers out there, many different people, Relogy, and many that make a lot of these products that are probably, much better high-end source. And so I'm not saying this is the way to go, but this was a very kind of an inexpensive that'd meet our needs. If you're dependent on a high load, or you need something that has more power or something in longevity, I can't say that this is going to be any good or any better, but this is what we kind of chose to go with. So please keep in mind. The one thing I did like about this inverter is it does have a panel that I can install on the inside that will actually tell, you can't really see it out here, but it'll actually tell, how much is coming in, the voltage, and I can actually turn the inverter remotely. It's got a plug on the back, so where you can actually turn it on from inside. You want to be able to have the capability to shut this off and on, so it's not using any power and not drawing from your batteries when you don't need it. Only going to have it when we need inverted power. This particular one, it has 4 plugs, it has USB. There are some that are hardwired that are actually wired in to give that. Not really caring about, the plugs, I may have those for outside, especially if I'm going to be, maybe running the grill, the smoker. Then it gives me the ability to plug in the smoker with some plugs, but main thing is so I can plug up my CPAPs. Going to kind of show you what we're going to do. We'll have power strip and how we're going to do our wiring, but that's for later time. All right, so now up here on the roof, I made the penetration. What I decided to do is, to avoid it doing, I'm going to go ahead and drill going down. So we're going to drill from the top going down now. We need to make sure that we have a big enough bit. Where's my connector? Because this connector is going to be on the bottom of this box. So the connector is going to go connected in here. It's going to be on the bottom, and that's where we're going to run our conduit, our EMT conduit. Okay, spread that up a little bit. Spread that on. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and drill my hole for my connector. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and feed my wires down. Now I ended up getting black wire. Normally you can get black and red would be the color, but they actually had just the black on sale already pre-cut. So I just put a piece of tape to indicate which one's going to be the positive, and I will paint, and I'll do the other one red. So this will be a positive one, but the tape will be the negative. So let me feed my wires down. Gonna tie a knot. tie a knot on them on this end. Picked up a number pack of the solar crimpers. These are what you'll crimp on the end of the wire. So there are two different ones. They'll have on the kit, I think it has 4 male and 4 female connectors, depending on whether it's a positive or a negative. Can't really get this wrong. It'll also have the center ferrules, which would be for male or female as well. Make sure the way I kind of looked at it is I looked at on my Y connector which is male or which is female. You could look it up to see, but I just know that the male will have the hot or the red wire will actually have a pin that goes in, and then the ground wire will be more the ground, or the black wire is more like this. So I've already put the hot wire on this. This is what it looks like, the connector on. I'll go ahead and do, since this was my ground because I had it taped. Just need to strip back just about a ½ inch. The barrel on first, so slide that dude on. I like these. These have actually got a little crimper tool. Pop that dude in there. Put hold pressure, push it in, and then just crimp down. It's on there nice and tight. Make sure it don't come off. Slide it onto your connector. Kind of locks in place. Make sure you put the little boot on first. Common thing is sometimes people forget to put the boot, but that helps watertight. Since I'm doing it in the box, my box here, it's not that critical or anything because everything's sealed, but it does create a watertight seal with that little rubber boot that's on there. Now my connectors are all ready to go for my solar hookup. I now have my wires, they come down. I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my charge controller right here on inside my panel. So that way I can easily, if I ever need to get in here to look to see, I can look and see what my, since instead of it being all up underneath my basement, I don't really want to see where it is under the basement, and this way I can go ahead and see what's going on with the solar. I'm also going to put the disconnect is going to go right up above here. So this is where I'm going to put my fuse and have my disconnect, so that way everything coming in for the solar panels will all come right into the panel, and then I'll go from here off out to the battery. So, but right now I want to just go ahead and get it as it comes into the charge controller. I'm going to go ahead and mount this now. This also, if I decide to have other, grab more solar panels or anything, all I need to do is change out this to like a bigger breaker. If I decide to add another 300 or 200 or 300 more watts, then I just need to add a bigger breaker. This number 8 wire is probably good up to probably about 700 watts of solar. We'll mount our charge controller right underneath it. Tighten these right up. Once I have my solar panels in place, and you'll see the input coming in. We'll discuss that at a later time. So now that we have our panel and have our inverter panel, everything all connected up in the battery, now we'll go ahead and finalize our connections here at our solar charge controller and then get it ready to go before we put our solar panels. All right, I now have the wires all connected up to the charge controller from the battery, and also there's a light that I can turn off and on the other side. I'm gonna go ahead and leave this right now, is gonna leave this disconnected, so I'm gonna leave it in the off position until once we get our solar panels and we test everything coming in to verify that in our charge controller that it does have the proper amps and the proper voltage coming in, and then we can do that to charge the batteries. I want to go ahead and at least mark holes, because I'm going to pre-drill and then I'm going to put some die core right where those are going to go. So once you kind of set your panels, figure out what you're doing in place, what we're doing is we're actually going to have, let's see what we got going. We're going to aim this down here. I've got my 200 watt panel that's right here. So I got a 200 watt panel that goes here, and then I have 100 watt panel that's going along here. So there'll be another 100 watt panel that's over here on the other side. So we're allowing enough space. You just put the brackets on, and then we will go ahead and secure the brackets down to the but the connections are up, and then afterwards we will talk about all the connections or all the control panel. But it was already recorded, it was already showing once I connected up. I had Nathan test it, and Nathan turned the breaker on, and it tested that we are receiving, that it was charging the batteries from the thing. So pretty exciting. All right, now that we're back, after we've got all the solar charge controller all installed, now we are going to go ahead and start putting all our stuff on our board. So for the inverter, for all the components and everything that's going to attach to, I guess, your wall board or whatever it is you're going to mount all your devices to. I find it easier, a lot of other people, if you just go ahead and have kind of a piece of plywood or a backboard or something, you can go ahead and build everything up and then install that or put that in place and everything once you put it inside your RV. So you want to go ahead and put all the things on where you're going to put on your backboard. As you can see, I've already kind of started drawing out to save some time of kind of where some of these devices are going to go. You don't want to bolt anything down at this moment until you kind of get everything in place, and once you start putting things kind of where they need to go, and you'll just kind of start building your, I guess, so to speak, build your backboard with all your components that you're going to have in place. There are several things you're going to need. You're going to need to get some especially if you're using wiring that you're going to do custom. Since this is going to be all custom made on the board, the wiring is going to have to be cut and custom made and everything to do that. So you need to pick up some of the lugs that'll go on each type of wire. This is for the 1/0 wire. These are the bigger ones, and then these are some of the smaller ones for the number 8, number 10 that we're going to need. You could go to Lowe's or Home Depot and pick up some bulk wire, especially for the 1/0. As I originally did, some of the wires that I ended up getting was more of the flexible wires for the batteries. Now, when getting some of the bulk wire, I got some of the bulk wire from like Lowe's or Home Depot. This is 1/0 wire. It's pretty tough to bend and to put in place, especially when you're doing short pieces. So it does take some time. You will need some tools. You're going to need to strip this off. You're going to need some type of crimpers. I ended up using pliers, but my one tool has actually a crimp. This doesn't work very well with the bigger ones, but it definitely works better for the smaller ones. They do have certain tools that you can buy to crimp to crimp on the 1/0 wire when you do the crimps. So they are much bigger. Some of them you beat down with a hammer, but you need to make sure that you get a good crimp on tool and everything with that. I ended up pre-doing some of my fittings and pre-doing some of the cabling and everything else, because just to save time. It does take a lot of time to crimp on all the ends and then to get everything in place that you need to. So I went ahead and made sure it has all the ends that I already have heat shrinked. I've already put all the ends on, crimped it all out, just to save time purposes. Let's go ahead and start. You want to wait to mount everything down, because the wiring is pretty tough and everything in place. It's best just to go ahead and get all your wiring, get everything in place, get everything tightened down before actually securing any of this to the board. That way you got room for adjustments, because it won't exactly line up the way you may plan or intend. So all right, so now we want to go ahead and start getting our negative side wires and everything in. For negative bus bar, then just start tightening everything up. Okay. It's not an exact science where everything goes. Just kind of get it down on the board and go ahead and get it in place. Once you have all the wires and have everything kind of where you want it, you can go ahead and start securing each individual component and whatever down to the board. The last thing I'll need to do is I'll need to drill a couple holes that'll be going through here just for my particular build, so because these wires are going to go around behind. But what I've decided, even though that this has, on the high side, this has 4 plugs that you can plug into. Sometimes it may be a little harder to get in there to these plugs, so I'm going to add an auxiliary plug. So I just want to add an additional plug to it. That way, if I need to plug in something, extension cord for some lights, or maybe for the pellet grill or stuff like that, I have an auxiliary plug. So I'm just going to wire up an auxiliary plug. I just picked up a regular 3-prong plug that will get plugged into here. Once I have this also together build, there will be other plugs that I'm going to plug into that's going to go up for the CPAP machines and everything else that'll go up above, because this is going to be right over where the bedroom and everything's at. So I am going to go ahead and last thing, I'm going to go ahead and zip down a box and go ahead and prepare that. All right, the last piece of the puzzle that we're going to have in, this will be for my number 8 wire. That's going to go back to the controller. Just to save time, like I showed you before, I've already pre-put the ends on, so that way we could just go ahead and connect those down. So go ahead and get those. We want to go ahead and make sure that we have the battery shut off. This is in the on position, so that way when we connect it to the battery, we're not providing power or anything juice. Since this goes to the charge controller, it'll then go to the battery to charge the battery. We also want to make sure this is also a 150 amp breaker, so it also acts as a switch breaker. We want to go ahead and make sure he's off too, so that way when we connect up the charge controller, we will go ahead and test. We'll go ahead and test the charge controller and make sure that the battery's charging without putting any power or anything for the batteries going into the inverter. Everything appears to be tight and connected, so I think we're now ready to go ahead and put our board and mount our board up inside. Okay, now I've got the board in place. I just need to go ahead and start getting these wires run along the track. I'm going to end up hooking up, as you know, we ran the data cable along with the other wires that go for the plug on the inside. That will wire up into that box as well. So we'll go ahead and then we'll secure this in place at the top and the bottom. We'll secure that in place. So, all right, so now I've got everything. Get my light up in here. Everything's kind of in place on the board. And this is kind of the end product. The only thing I need to do is I need to connect up a data cable that will connect into here, and that'll provide the signal to where I can remotely shut it off and on from the outside. But right now we're going to go ahead and leave this in the off position, and this is going to go ahead and stay in the off position. As we go and connect that to the solar panels, we then will go ahead and add power. I may go ahead and connect it up to the battery and go ahead and get the battery all connected up and ready to go, because I can just leave this on the off position. All right, as we can see, we come down here to the controller. Got my breaker turned on that I put in place, and as I can see the reading, let me get this set up. Right now it's showing 14 volts. I got it set. Once it reaches, the batteries are fully charged, it'll shut off. Right now it's showing that the panels are charging the battery. I'll go ahead and shut the load off of the light. And then you can see where it turned off the panels. So now the panel's turned off, so that means the max, it's holding the voltage at 14.2, so it won't. So if the voltage ever drops, anything below that, as soon as it starts dropping down below, it'll continue to charge up until the batteries are at capacity. Right now the battery's up at capacity. If I put the disconnect in where I'm drawing more from the inside, there the solar panels will continue to maintain and keep the batteries charging. Like this is stated before, there's a light that's tied to this that's underneath here. I could turn the light on. It'll show a load. Shows there's a load on, and it shows that the light is on. Right now it's the way to kind of draw a load. I can hook some USB ports up here to charge the phone, charge stuff, or other lights. If I want to hook up USB ports, anything out here. So that's pretty much it for the solar charge controller. But going through the menu, checking the amps and everything are good. It's not that much draw, because I don't have that much draw on the light. It's barely drawing any amps. Once we start putting some hours or start drawing more, it'll then, especially if we're on the inverter, it'll then show more of a draw of the amp hours and everything else. Right now there's 0 amp hours that's being drawn from the battery. Okay, so now it's time to do the last and final piece of the puzzle. This is going to be the on and off switch that's going to control the inverter. That'll be in control from the inside. I think I'm going to go ahead and put that in the wall, like right here. So that way I can go ahead and I can see what my battery usage, what everything with the inverter. I'm also going to take that plug. Right now this plug, which I added before, added this plug in so we can, use a laptop and plug a power strip in and stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the bottom one will be on shore power and the top one's going to be inverted. So that way, if we are boondocking and we are needed inverted power, then we go ahead and we're take it off, unplug the power strip from here, plug it into here, and now we're on inverted power. How I'm going to do that is I'll show you. Every outlet has a little tang that goes between the two. If you cut that little tang, you can actually have 2 separate circuits on an outlet. the purpose of that is so you can have two separate circuits. If you want to have one that's like a switched one or whatever, you can do that. So I'm going to do that in this case and make one of them inverted and one of them on shore power. Make sure before you do any electricity that you go ahead and remove the power. So I'm going to test that. Here's that receptacle. So I'm going to turn that breaker off. And we have no volts now on that outlet. This little tab right here is what we're going to end up breaking off. So you're going to need to do that on both sides. As you can see, there's one on that side, so on the hot. But you'll go ahead and break that tab off, and that's what connects the two sides. Alright, we now have completed our final steps. What I did is I broke that tang like I was sharing with you. I now have my shore power that I coming in, or I have inverted power. The last thing I did was I now have my panel installed. So as you can see right now, it's got 13.9 volts. There's 120 volts output, 121 volts output, and right now I'm using 48 watts of power, between 36 and 48 watts of power. So I have a fan. I have a fan that's running to our power strip that's in the back. And that's the reason why I've got the fan is pulling about between 36, 48. See what the coffee maker draws. Woo! Coffee maker, it jumps up to 800 watts of power. All right, well, that's pretty much concludes our solar build. I know it was a lot of steps, may seem like a lot of information, but once I kind of figured things out and put things together and started putting all the pieces of the puzzle, plus trying to do this while being sick over a course of period of time, was able to still continue to finish this. I will continue. I'll put all the description to all the things that I used in this build, fitting the 400 watts of solar and the inverter and everything. And you can change things up as you want. I'm not by any means saying this is how to do it or this is what. These are just what I use for the build for my system. But I will put all the link to all the items I use, so that way you can go on Amazon, find them real easy and everything else. So I hope this was somewhat informative to those of you out there. I tried to give as much details that I could, but also tried to make sure that it was something simple enough that if I can do it, surely any of you guys can do it. So if you continue to like us doing these videos, these how-to videos, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me that thumbs up. Like all the comments below, and here's another video from Kevin with KKOA. All right, we'll see you later. Bye.